channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. Today I'm going to be taking you guys through the 24 books that I want to read in 2024. Now this is kind of like a yearly TBR as such. Doesn't mean that I won't be reading books outside of this stack, because I definitely will. Will I stick to a TBR? I don't know. I'm very much a mood reader, so we'll just have to see how it goes. However, I've got a huge mix of different books here. I've got lots of different genres. I think one of my main reading goals for the new year is to just immerse myself in different genres, discover new authors that I wouldn't typically pick up, and just generally have fun with my reading and not feel like it's a chore, and that it's okay to DNF a book. If you don't like a book, you don't like it. If you love it, you love it. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and if you do, don't forget to give the video a big old thumbs up, subscribe down below, and don't forget to turn on the little post notification bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video. And with that said, let's just jump straight into the video. Okay, so I'm gonna do these in no particular order. I have got quite a few books to get through, so I won't be talking too much about the synopsis, purely because I almost want to go into most of these books blind if I don't actually know anything about them. So we're going to start off big and strong with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab. I've heard so many incredible things about this book. I'm not actually 100% sure what genre this is. However, all I know is that it is set in 1714 in France. Now this obviously piques my interest because I am from France, if anybody is unaware. So for me, reading about France, I love it. I just want to see this author's imagination and just her writing. Also really interested in reading her other books. I believe like Gallon and the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy, I want to call it. I could be completely wrong. However, I know that she's predominantly a fantasy writer, so if you guys can actually tell me what genre this book is, because I'm not 100% sure on it, but I'm very looking forward to reading it. It's also a really beautiful edition. I managed to get my hands on the exclusive edition from Waterstones, and it's got such a beautiful hardback, some really gorgeous art in it as well. Next up is The Christie Affair by Nina de Gramont, I want to say. I could be wrong. That is her name. As you guys know, I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan, so for me, reading anything about Agatha Christie is incredible. Now, not only is this I believe it's based on a true story, and it is about Agatha Christie's disappearance that happened. She disappeared for 11 days, I believe, in 1926. So I really want to see what this is all about. I don't really know much about her disappearance or what happened, so to see what actually did happen would be really interesting. This is also a really pretty edition. I love the sprayed edges, but I've had this quite literally on my shelf for about 2 years now, and I've just not picked it up, and I keep saying to myself that I'm gonna read it and then I don't. So this is my time to read it. Next up, another one of my reading goals is to read more fantasy this year. I've got quite a few series that I want to read and get into and finish almost, and one of them being Light Luck by Alex Astor. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I believe there is already a second book out. This has been said to remind people of the Hunger Games and Squid Game, that sort of stuff. It's, I believe, something about a game that happens like every 100 years or something on an island, and these contestants have some sort of like power or something. I'm not 100% sure, but this does sound really interesting, so I feel like this is a really good start to my fantasy reads of the year. I did also post a video of my most anticipated reads for 2024, which include quite a few other books that aren't included in this video. I wanted to kind of go through books that I haven't talked about before, so if you want to see that, then the link will be in the description box down below. Next up on my list is Carrie Soto Is Back. I've got a huge backlist of TJR books that I want to read this year, one of them being this one and the other being Malibu Rising, which I will talk about both of them at the same time. TJR has become one of my favourite authors ever. I read The Seven Husbands when I first joined Bookstagram back in early 2022, so almost 2 years ago, guys. It's crazy. I remember picking up that book and reading it and devouring it in pretty much less than 24 hours, and at that time I wasn't a huge reader, so to sort of just sit there and read. And then I later on went to read Daisy Jones and the Six, and that once again was another really good book. So I definitely wanted to read a couple more of TJR's work. I've been really scared to read Carrie Soto's back, purely because it is about tennis, and I don't really know much about tennis. Like, I kind of know the basic rules of tennis and how you play it and stuff, but the whole tennis world and things like that, I am absolutely clueless. But I heard Rachel Catherine said that she read this, and initially she was really worried about going into the book as well because she didn't know anything about tennis. And she said that she really enjoyed it, and that you didn't really need to have a tennis background in order to enjoy it or understand it. So I felt a little bit better. This is definitely going to be high on my priority list, I think, this year. I really want to read this one. And then obviously Malibu Rising as well. I believe there's a crossover with characters from one of her other books. I can't remember which one it is, but I'm really excited to dive into this one. This does sound right up my street, and this is set in 1983, so that sounds really exciting. I love anything 80s related, so let's see what this is all about. But I also have a feeling I really want to do like a TJR reading vlog or something, because next up is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I'm really in the mood for romance. Obviously next year I've got quite a few romances included in this stack, but I've heard so many people talk about Lynn Painter and how her writing is absolutely amazing. I know Hayley Pham is a huge fan, and she said that her writing is just incredible. So I believe anything the book besties say, anything that Hayley, Rachel, Sarah or Des talk about, I am there for it. I am with them. So I am very excited to dive into this one. I believe this is, I actually have no idea what this is about. I'm just really excited to dive into it. I also have a really exciting reading vlog coming up next year that includes reading romance books, so definitely stay tuned for that, because I feel like that could be a lot of fun. Next up is Yellowface by Rebecca F. Kwong, who also wrote Babel, which I haven't read yet. And if you guys watched my autumn TBR books that I wanted to read, that was in the video. However, I did not read it. I actually ended up having a bit of a reading slump around autumn and ended up not actually reading any of the books minus one that was in that entire stack. And one of them was a reread and the other one was a new read, but I honestly didn't read any of those books. So when I say a TBR, I mean it very lightly, because I most likely probably won't actually even dive into these books. I'm hoping I can stick to it. But Yellowface, I've heard so much about it this year. It is also about the publishing industry, I believe, and I would really like to work in the publishing industry once I graduate university. So for me, this is a really fun read, just to see sort of like the fictional side of it all. I feel like this could be a pretty good book. It looks like almost grey on camera. It's not, it is yellow. I don't know what my camera settings are right now, but a bit off. Next up is I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Once again, this was another huge read for a lot of people this year, and I've heard some incredible things about it. However, I've heard that the audiobook version of this is better because Jeanette herself actually voices it, which is really cool. So I feel like I'm gonna opt for that. I don't really listen to audiobooks. I'm not a huge fan of them. I have this thing where I really struggle to listen to other people read a book, if that makes sense. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Because when I read, you obviously have your own kind of intonation when you read. And I just can't, sometimes I just can't get on with other people. I think if it's the author of the book themselves, then I will read it, because they obviously interpret it in the way that they originally wrote it. But if it's other people, then that's when I struggle. Next up is Transatlantic. I don't think I've actually ever heard anyone discuss this book, and I'm really gutted, because this was a Netflix show that came out back in April or around Easter time anyway, and I watched it. I binged it in one sitting. It was incredible. I didn't actually know that it was a book previous to it. Obviously this is now the Netflix cover, but that show was so amazing. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. If you are someone that loves watching anything about history, Second World War, this is set in 1940 in France. But I think this book follows Varian Fry, who is a young American journalist who basically arrives in Marseille, and he basically wants to rescue the Jewish from France, which I think it's a super interesting story. I really recommend it. If you like that sort of stuff, definitely recommend the book. I obviously haven't read the book yet, but the Netflix show, as I know it, is really good. Super informative. The way that it was filmed was really cool, and you got to see a lot of like the French countryside and things like that, which I also love. So next up is Fourth Wing. I kind of had to include this because of how highly raved it was this year, especially Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. Oh my god, I don't think I've ever seen so many people talk about a book ever, and that's saying something. Like when ACOTAR went viral and things like that, like this book, every day I see something about it. Every flipping day I see something about it. So it's only right that I include this. Will I get round to it? I'm not 100% sure. I would like to. However, as I said, fantasy, I'm quite a slow reader when it comes to fantasy. I don't read a lot of the genre. So for me, I really need to be invested in the story. However, I do know that this is about dragons. Is all I know. That's all I know about the book. I've tried to avoid every spoiler, every review, everything, just so that when I do read it, I hope to be pleasantly surprised. But I have heard also that people who are new to the genre should read this. Next up is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I've mentioned, I think in the last couple of videos I've uploaded, that I really wanted to read Check and Mate, which is her new release. It's a YA romance, whereas her other ones are adult romances. I've not read them. This has also been sitting on my shelf for the last 2 years. 2 years. And Love on the Brain. So I'm really hoping to maybe make a reading vlog out of this. I would be really interested in doing that actually. So I'd be really interested in this purely because I've heard so much about Ali Hazelwood and how she writes a good romance book. All the romance lovers out there have loved this book. So next up is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. As you guys know, I'm a huge Heartstopper fan. I love Heartstopper through and through. One of my favorite book series of all time, quite literally probably one of like up there in my top 3. Book characters wise, my favorite book characters, like no explanation needed. But I really want to read more of Alice Oseman's backlist, so this is high priority. I've got Solitaire as well sitting on my shelf, and I've got Nick and Charlie, which I read once I'd finished volume 4, and at the time I didn't know volume 5 was going to come out, or volume 6 for that matter. So I read that, so I kind of know already what's going to happen, but it's okay. We move forward. Next up is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I think that's Zusak, however. And this is kind of just a classic really, because everybody has talked about The Book Thief. I don't actually know anything about it. I believe it is Second World War once again, all I know about it, but I really need to read more classics. So this is one of them, and so many people reference The Book Thief, so I feel like it's only right that it is a book that I read this year. Okay, so in my anticipated reads for 2024, I mentioned that I wanted to read more Greek mythology and that I wanted to read The Song of Achilles and Circe, and I also really want to read Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. Now I've also heard that Jennifer Saint is an incredible Greek mythology writer, and everyone that I've spoken to about Greek mythology has said Madeline Miller and Jennifer Saint, probably 2 of the best Greek mythology writers. So I just had to include this. Whether I read all 3 of them this year, I have no idea. I know that Jennifer Saint has got a couple of other books which I'm very much looking forward to getting my hands on, but I said to myself that I would read Ariadne first before I read any more of her books. But I am actually very excited to read some Greek mythology. Next up is Love and Olives by Jennifer Evans Welch. Jenna Evans Welch. I read Love and Gelato back in 2022, I want to say, and I really did enjoy it. It was a very like sweet YA romance that was all about travel and everything, and in that set, when I bought Love and Gelato, I got Love and Olives and Love and Luck, which don't think follow each other at all actually. They're all very, very different, but this one is based in Santorini, which is in Greece. I'm just so excited to read this. I really need some kind of, I've tried to make it so that I have some really intricate, detailed books like Fourth Wing that I know would typically take me a little bit more time to read, but then fill it in with like a really fast-paced book, like a YA romance that I can just fly through. But I do love a cheeky little YA romance. Next up is Uncle Paul by Celia Fremlin. I really picked this book up on a whim. I remember when I bought it, I literally had no idea. I'd never heard of this author before, but this is a murder mystery, I think. Uncle Paul is returning for revenge because he was in prison. So that seems quite like a fun book. It's quite a short book as well. As I said, I kind of tried to like mix it up a little bit, but I am very, very excited to read this. I don't actually have a lot of mystery books within this pile, so I feel like that could be a good option. I need like a break in between some books. I can pick that one up quite quickly. Next up is As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by, I'm not even going to try and pronounce this author's name because I do not want to get it wrong, but I have heard that this is an incredibly beautifully written story. I've seen a lot of indie bookshops stock it, and they have all said that this is like a 5-star, 6-star read even. I have no idea what it is about, but I kind of want to keep it that way purely because I just want to kind of dive into this book and really feel like everything that this book kind of contains. So very excited to read this one. I also just really love the cover of it. I think it's really pretty. Next up we have The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, sorry. This is also a Waterstones exclusive edition. I love it. I think it's so pretty. I have heard that people have related this to Caraval, which, as you guys know, I loved Caraval so much. I don't think I've actually really talked about it on this channel, to be honest, but I read Caraval at the beginning of the year. I haven't finished the series. I read the first 2 books. I'm yet to read the last book, and then obviously Once Upon a Broken Heart. I am very much looking forward to reading this because I really want to read a book like Caraval again. It was so good. I know Caraval gets a lot of mixed reviews. Personally, I loved it. I really loved it. I didn't enjoy the second book as much as I did the first, which is why I'm really scared to read the third book. I feel like a whole reread of that series is worth it. But yeah, I'm really excited to read this, and I believe there's a second book, which is The Starless Sea or something. Could be wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm very, very excited to read that one as well. Next up we have Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I think I mentioned this book in my autumn TBR, and once again I didn't read it, but I've heard so many people say incredible things about this book that it's only right that I do read this book soon. I am very, very excited to read it. I just love the cover of it because there's also the second book in the series as well, which I think anything that ever becomes a series is obviously a very good book to begin with, so I feel like I will really, really enjoy that one. Next up we are on to the last 4 books that I want to read. The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I would like to actually end up reading the whole series of this. I've only got my hands on the first book at the moment. For some reason in the UK I can't seem to find anything more than the second book, so I'm not 100% sure if they've all been released in the UK. I need to have a look at that actually. People have related it to CSI, which I love, so this is, you know, and all of our book besties have said that it is an incredible book. Next up is Lessons in Chemistry. I mentioned this in my end of year TBR, I think, or like books that I want to read before 2024. I haven't had the chance to get round to it, but this book, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus, is quite literally right at the top of my list because I really want to read it. Next up is Beth O'Leary's The No Show. I've got all of Beth O'Leary's books minus the new book, but I've got all of her other books, but I really want to read this. I don't know why, but this one just kind of stands out to me the most, so I'm very excited to read this. As I said, I want to read quite a few kind of romance books this year. So. And lastly is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I started reading You and Me on Vacation a couple years ago and I actually DNF'd it. I didn't get on with it at all. I thought it was, I don't know what it was. Maybe I just wasn't reading it at the right time. I feel like these books need to be read at a right time, or like seriously need to be in the mood for them. It was a library book that I rented and I obviously had to read it within the time limit, but I got to like over page 100. I just DNF'd it. I couldn't go with it. But then I actually bought Book Lovers, Beach Read and You and Me on Vacation all together, and I just thought I'll buy them because they were with the works for like the 3 for £6 deal. So they were super cheap. So I just thought I'll get them and then I'll read them when the time comes. One of people's favourite Emily Henry books, so I feel like I need to start off with Book Lovers, even though You and Me Vacation was like literally raved about for quite a while. But I feel like if I start off with Book Lovers, then we should be okay. So those are the 24 books that I would like to read in 2024. That does sound quite a lot of books. And as I said, this is just a rough idea of 24 books that I would definitely 100% like to read this year. Whether I get round to reading them all, I have no idea. 2023 I read, well this year I read 32 books, I want to say. Yeah, I read 32 books this year, which probably doesn't seem like a lot to some people, but obviously 24 books is well over half of what I've read. So yeah, it's just interesting. So if you guys have any recommendations for books that I definitely need to read within the year, then please do let me know. I'd love to know what your 24 books in 2024 are. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give the video a big old thumbs up, subscribe down below, and don't forget to turn on the post notification bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video. And with that said, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.